Well, it is great to be here. Thank you for that awesome introduction. The bad news is that I'm starting to get hoarse, so I brought some water with me, so hopefully we can get through this together. So let's get into it. So the topics that I'll be covering today are who we are, why we exist, why and how did we start the Kansas Rail Caucus, what has been the result of our efforts, and what is a passenger rail revolving fund, and what are next steps? So, yes, you did the math. We have been around for 20 years. We have had some successes, and I'll get into that. But in 2006, citizens from Wichita and Oklahoma City began to communicate online, and this was before Facebook. In 2008, we formally organized as a C4. And it was clear that our common goal was closing the 200-mile service gap that exists between Oklahoma City and the Wichita Metro. So this is the 200-mile service gap. Could I see a show of hands for those of you that have seen this map that shows the service gap? Right, half a dozen? All right, very good. We could do better, though, to get the word out. It is also the location of the Heartland Flyer extension. This is the most obvious low-hanging fruit of Amtrak's national network. This map comes from the Oklahoma City Chamber of Commerce. The powerhouse that is the I-35 mega region is why our work should be important to all 4 states you see here. Brian Siegman did mention that the I-35 corridor this morning, there are something like 40 million people in this corridor. This needs passenger rail. The economic gains that Missouri is experiencing with passenger rail has had a significant effect on legislative outcomes in Kansas, primarily because we're sharing MoDOT's economic impact studies of the River Runner. So why a rail caucus? Well, we had a couple of problems that needed fixing. Too much inaccurate information. We needed something more formal where everyone got the same information from the same experts. We needed the right messenger for the message. Transportation and rail professionals are important, but so are advocates who can share what's happening in the region. A rail caucus is also efficient. In addition to learning the facts instead of myths, legislators can get their questions answered directly by the experts. So how did we do it? Well, first we created and implemented a marketing campaign that included a series of mailings. We had a very strong reply. The last mailing asked for chair nominations, and ultimately Senator Carolyn McGinn became our first Rail Caucus chair in 2021. All caucus meetings are available on YouTube. So what have been our wins? Well, this legislation, which passed by a 95% margin, and it authorized KDOT to create a passenger rail program. We also created the passenger rail revolving fund at the same time. So a revolving fund is necessary and important because, number one, it establishes an account within the DOT. It allows for loans, grants, and money flows for specific modes of transportation, and it legitimizes the program within the Department of Transportation. We also advocated for both the, for both the original Service Development Plan and the State Rail Plan of 2021 during presentations to the Senate Transportation Committee. The caucus that you see today began in 2021. And the rest of the things that you see here all occurred after forming the Rail Caucus. This is when we got the money. So what influences legislators? Well, in 2009, we hired Kansas University to do a return on investment study. We used this study in 2010 to pass legislation, which became Kansas Statute 755089. Also, MoDOT's 2021 Economic Impact Study of the River Runner. Sharing with legislators during the Rail Caucus and Senate Budget Committee hearing in '24 made a huge difference in the outcome. So what's next? Well, the benefits of having a rail caucus and a passenger rail revolving fund are getting noticed. As of March of this year, Missouri now has its own rail caucus, and they're seeking their own passenger rail revolving fund. Even though they have a train, they feel like they need it. But in order to keep the Heartland Flyer, Texas and Oklahoma need to do the same. The Northern Flyer Alliance and Texas Rail advocates are working diligently and together to try and make that happen. This concludes my presentation. We are powered by donations, so if you think our work is important, please consider donating by scanning this QR code. Are there any questions?
Deborah, give us a little background on creating the Northern Flyer Alliance, and how long did it take and how hard was it to get to where you were now?
Was it a heavy lift? That's what I got asked by a legislator from Missouri. Yeah, it was a heavy lift. I'm just going to be honest. It's all been a heavy lift. In terms of the amount of time, gosh, I have to say that it took an individual in Oklahoma sending me emails every night for 9 months for me to understand really what was going on, what was ahead of us, what had happened in the past, and what we really needed to do. But, you know, my kids were gone, and I felt like I need something to do here. I will share also that in 2005, there was a program, I lived in Wichita at the time, Visionary in Wichita. And Visionary in Wichita was something that needed help from the citizens. So I became a, what do you call those, captain of the precinct, right? So my precinct voted yes by a 14% margin, which was higher than anybody else's in the city. And I thought, okay, I'm powerful. What else can I do? So that was one of the reasons why I got involved, and I wasn't daunted. But there were a lot of, people that have joined and quit because it's a slog. And we heard earlier today from John Robert Smith that it's a slog. Letters of support are really, really important. Don't be afraid to reach out to leaders of the community, mayors, city managers. Northern Oklahoma really loves what we do, and they have given us money. All of the communities, there's like 4 with stops on the Heartland Flyer extension that have given us money over a long period of time. They've all provided those letters of support, and they've come to the Kansas legislature to speak. So we've developed a really great relationship with them. What's your next question? Did I answer your question satisfactorily?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Thank you for coming. It's been a long travel for you to get here. But so with the success that you guys have had in Kansas with creating a rail caucus, do you have anything that you might be able to share with other states and this step-by-step on how you did it?
As a matter of fact, I do. So if you were to scan this QR code that disappeared, oh, there we go. There it is again. Okay. Scroll to the bottom. My email address is there. Put in the subject line, Rail Caucus How To, and I'll send you some documents.
Thank you.
Anything else?
One other thing, Deborah, does Kansas have any other plans for future passenger rail expansion other than the Heartland Flyer extension?
Well, yes, we do. The Service Development Plan of 2011 studied 4 different options, but in depth they studied 2. The second one was a Kansas to Dallas-Fort Worth train that was 2 trains a day. I'm going to shout it out right now, if the Heartland Flyer goes away, that means the Heartland Flyer extension goes away, we will pivot to the Kansas City to Dallas-Fort Worth train. So that's kind of our plan in the background. I've already talked to the railroad operations manager in Missouri, and he seems supportive as long as the mayor is, so I'll be talking to the mayor.
when you all started going, where is it, Newton, anyhow, to the Capitol, talking to the legislators, did you get the attention of one person, or did y'all actually get the ear of several at one time, or did you really have to stoke the fires several times to get their attention to say, hey, we're serious about this?
That's a great question. Okay, so I was strategic in where I went and where I met people. So I knew that the Wichita Chamber of Commerce was having a banquet in Topeka. So I signed up. And it just so happened I sat at a table with a state senator and his wife. And I told him about this project. And he said, you know, I want to know more. This sounds really great. I wasn't expecting that, but I hit a gold mine. So he worked with us for a year to make sure that we wrote the legislation, got it through the Office of the Reviser. He even had Amtrak come out and speak to us because there was some issues with getting some documentation in that was going to support this. And then when he was in the legislature, he was also running for office at the federal level. And he was doing quite well. And so it just sort of like was, you know, lift all boats. So this got a lot of attention because of who he was, partially, but also because the Midwest Interstate Passenger Rail Commission executive director came and entered legislation also. And that was the MIPRC Act, which essentially made Kansas a member of the MIPRC. So I was the first commissioner for Kansas for a couple of years. That original senator, Senator Dick Kelsey, had to step out of the federal race, but we had enough momentum that both of those pieces of legislation passed by a 95% margin, which is like almost unheard of. Now, we were told that the reason why it passed with such a high percentage was because there was no fiscal note attached. It's interesting because in 2024, when we got the $5 million transfer from the general fund, we've been entering legislation for the last 3 years. The senators that were involved in the conference committee, and that's kind of, you know, a long story, but the ones that were involved in the conference committee really studied the original legislation, and they said, you don't need a fiscal note. This is everything you need. But we already had entered legislation for a fiscal note, and so the Senate passed our legislation 34-6. It was kind of like their baby. So when the House didn't take it up, it really pissed them off. And so they fought for that piece of legislation. They made sure that $5 million got into the revolving fund, and it was signed by the governor. Then in 25 and 26, as I was sharing earlier, we didn't even need to really do anything, although we still entered legislation to support what was happening. We believe that the governor went to KDOT and said, look, we don't need to mess with the general fund. Just move $5 million over from your transportation fund. And that's what they did for 2 years. So now, did I answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
I got a follow-up too, though. I know you got to take baby steps before you start taking big steps and run it. But, I mean, what is the potential of, say, getting Kansas City to Oklahoma City, DFW, almost combining the old Texas chief with, what was it, the Pan American or something like that they used to have running to Monterey and such? I mean, when you're combining that many people,
Yeah.
may not happen before we're dead and buried, but
What are the chances?
what are the chances of having a longer, that way you can get more funding as well, correct?
Yeah, there's kind of a hurdle that we have to cross, though. KDOT has said they're only going to do one project at a time. And they chose the Heartland Flyer extension. But they have also shared publicly more than once that they are interested in an extension to Kansas City. So the original Kansas City to Dallas-Fort Worth, twice daily train may not ultimately be what happens first. It might be just an extension of the Heartland Flyer onto Kansas City. They don't know. But that is something that they've shared as a goal.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. It's glad to see
right.
that the state of Kansas is taking such a strong interest. Thank you so much.
You bet. Thank you.